What up? What up? I'm gonna wait for a few of y'all to hop on. And then we are going to start episode 2 of the podcast. Hopefully y'all listened to episode 1. Hopefully you liked it. The Morning Sun podcast is hosted by me, your host, TJ Two Braids. And it's on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook Live, and everywhere else, Anchor FM, and everywhere else podcasts are available. So this is the Morning Sun podcast. Today we're going to talk about Native Heritage Month, E5 Ministries, a ministry I started, and then NFL talk. Now that I see I got a few of y'all, I'm about to hit play on the recording. And we live, baby. Welcome to the Morning Sun podcast. I'm your host, TJ Two Braids, coming live and direct from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I just want to welcome you back to episode 2. Like I said, the Morning Sun podcast will be broadcast twice a week on Facebook Live and YouTube in video form. And then you can always find the audio form on Spotify, Anchor FM, and wherever else you may find podcasts. So today we're going to be talking about Native Heritage Month. Then we're going to talk about E5 Ministries, a ministry that I started. And then lastly, we'll get into some discussion around the NFL. So let's just kick it off with Native Heritage Month. This is Native Heritage Month. This is Thank a Native Month. Don't celebrate Thanksgiving next week. Celebrate Thank a Native Day. All right? Now, I'm low-key just capping, but I'm low-key serious. But it's Native Heritage Month. Why is it important? It's important. I would break it down with this story on why it's important. I was playing basketball one time with my dad. We were at a public park hooping, and after we got done, a little girl came up to us, and she said, "Excuse me, misters, are you guys real Indians?" And then my dad looked at her and said, "As real as they come." And then she ran away to her parents, and she said, "They're real Indians, Mom or Dad, real Indians." Now, it's funny. And it's comical, and I thought it was hilarious because it was like a 3 or 4 year old innocent white kid, and I didn't take offense to it. But the reality is there are people in America, and the fact of the matter is, by this story, there are people in America who may think Native Americans are a mystical creature, are a culture from the past, or simply know little to nothing about Native culture and people groups. And so why is it important? That story itself would bring clarity to why it's important. It's important because there are people who may think Native people don't exist. They may not have met a Native person. They maybe have never went to the reservation. They don't know about the struggles, the issues, and most importantly, they may not know their own country's history. I don't want to make this podcast all about trauma, all about negative issues of the past. So I'll just simply say, in 6th grade, I got detention because I stood up and told the history teacher that she was giving us false history on the country of America. That America was not founded by Columbus, and that was basically, in other words, a load of baloney. So that's another reason why it's important. It's important to pay tribute to the first people of this land, who, by the way, by fact, are the most serving people group in the U.S. military in the history of the United States. No other people group has served more than Native Americans. even though we couldn't practice our own religion until like the 70s, even though many treaties were broken, even though land was stolen and all the things that happened. And so I would encourage you, if you don't know Native people, please get a chance to know them. Get a chance to hear our story. Get a chance to understand that we are different. We're not all the same. So myself, I'm Red Lake Ojibwe. Excuse me. If I were to greet you in my language, I would say bonjour. Say that with me. Bonjour. So if I were to greet you in my language, I would say bonjour, hello. If I were to say good afternoon, I believe it's Mino Gijigat. Mino Gijigat. Good afternoon. There's no, or maybe that's see you later. I don't speak fluent Ojibwe, and I am ashamed of that fact. I would like to learn it. But I do know that there is no word for goodbye in our language. It's just see you later. And so with the hopes of that, that's cool. That's another thing I would like to share about Native culture, at least specifically in our tribe. There's no word for goodbye. And it's kind of cool to think about the fact that when I part ways with you, I'm not saying goodbye. I'm saying see you later in hopes that I will see you again and that your life will prosper and that you'll be alive the next time I see you. And if I don't see you in this life, then maybe I can see you in the afterlife. So how do we celebrate it? We celebrate it by understanding Native peoples, by partaking in the culture, the language. If you want to learn more about a community in our city, you can look up the video that we created called Little Earth, Pride of the People, Overcoming the Pain of the Past. It was created by 3 Little Earth High School residents, Chitwood Media and Inverted Arts, and myself, all in a collaboration. Maybe you've always wondered about Little Earth. You can find more about it. We'll actually be showing another viewing of the film next Saturday night at 7 p.m., which I'll get into when I talk about E5 Ministries. But how do we celebrate Native culture? In many ways. Have you ever had fry bread? Have you ever had wild rice? Have you ever had red leg walleye? Now we're talking, baby. Red leg walleye is world famous. That's some good fish. That's some good eating. There's nothing like going to the res and having a fish fry with fresh caught walleye. How many, and it's just other fun facts. How many tribes are in Minnesota? Do we know that as Minnesota residents? There's 11 tribes. So there's 7 Ojibwe tribes and there's 4 Lakota tribes. And then so on and so forth. So I would encourage you, get to know your Native American indigenous neighbors. Get to know the communities. Take a trip to the res. If you ever need help in finding ideas or ways to give back to the first people of this land, I, by all means, work every day with Native people, Native youth, Native young adults. I would be more than happy to point you in the right direction. We're always looking for volunteers, mentors, donors, assistant coaches. Basketball season's coming up. A lot of things. And also, yet, maybe you want to get some dope gear. So maybe you're looking at my hat and you're like, yo, that's kind of a cool hat. This is a Nike N7 hat. And the N7 fund is a fund that it goes all to Native youth programming. So all the proceeds of any N7 gear. So for instance, I have this hat. I also have some Jordan 8 retros that I bought. And I have a couple other pairs of N7 shoes that were previously released. But what it is Native artists, they design all of this gear. So if you see it has, it has the tribal decoration. And if you're listening by audio, I'm sorry, but you can Google Nike N7 and then it'll pop up and you can see what I'm talking about. But you could buy this hat. You could buy some N7 shoes designed by Natives, and 100% of the profits would go towards Native youth programming. So that's really awesome. It's almost like you're donating to a good cause, and yet on top of it, you get some really, really dope Nike gear. So I think this hat was $26 or something. On average with, any hat you would buy at Lids or somewhere in the mall. And yet 100% of the proceeds would go to Native youth programming in North America. So that's a really, really simple way that you can give back to Native communities, and yet you get something in return immediately. And I'm wearing it. Shout out to N7. Maybe one day I'll be one of their sponsors. I'm just kidding. But last thing I want to share about is one second. The last thing I want to share about in Native Heritage Month. There's a lot I could say, but like I said, I don't want to make this podcast fully about Native history. I'm proud to be a Native man. I'm proud to be Indigenous. I'm proud to have been, at the time after my brother left, the only Native man at my university, North Central University. I'm proud to be a trailblazer in those ways. And it's not to just brag on myself, but brag on what God has done in my life. And it's an awesome thing. But the last thing I want to share is my wife's beadwork. She has a lot of beadwork for sale. You can follow her on Instagram. I believe her Instagram is Art by Summer Sky. And I can post stuff later. There's also other postings on our Facebook page. But here's one item, for instance. It's a keychain with a plush little kitty cat. So she makes keychains. Here's another cool. This kind of looks more like a Southwestern colorway keychain. These keychains are $30. The price is negotiable, but we just have the set price at $30. If you have 20 and you want to buy it, we're willing to barter with you. If you want to babysit our kids for a night so we can go see a movie, we can hook you up with a keychain or two. I think my wife's cool with that. She's not here right now. Well, she's in the other room, but she also makes pop sockets. So here's a pop socket, beaded. A lot of time goes into it. Different things. I'm trying to get her to make medallions, but she's still learning. This is the other last keychain I'll show y'all. It's a pink and white one for breast cancer awareness, and it has a pink heart. Really, really cool. So that's a simple way where you could participate in Native American culture. Could buy a keychain. Support your boy. More importantly, support my wife. It was a big step for her to branch out and start making her own beadwork and posting it online. And, it's not going to make our living, but it's just extra cash for diapers, random stuff, And so with that, I would say that's going to wrap up our segment on Native American Heritage Month. If you ever need to have a further discussion about Native culture and people groups, I'd love to have that. Once again, this is the Morning Sun Podcast. We broadcast twice a week on Facebook Live, YouTube, Anchor FM, and Spotify. And we welcome you for listening. This is episode 2, so this is the second podcast ever. And like I said, we're going to be talking about a variety of topics. And so why don't we get right into the second topic? Now that we covered Native American Heritage Month, I'm your host, TJ Two Braids. You can follow me online, look at my music, whatever else. I want to talk about now E5 Ministries. It's a ministry I started. Really, it was birthed in me when I was in college 6, 7, 8 years ago at North Central University. And it finally came to fruition like a year ago. But E5 Ministries is really simple. And you hear the word ministry and it might come with a negative connotation. But if you know me, you know that I love people. I want to serve people. I want to help people thrive and flourish. And I think the church has sometimes done a terrible job at helping people and trying to force people to follow Jesus and many things. But E5 Ministries, all it stands for is that we want to encounter people right where they're at. We don't want to drag you to church. We don't want to make you put on a suit or a tie or go through some type of education or jump through a hoop. We want to encounter you right where you're at. And then we want to engage you with a relevant message. And so we put the gospel and positive messages into relevant form, whether it's music, through basketball, through simply sharing a meal with someone, getting a cup of coffee, providing some type of need or resource. We're going to encounter you right where you're at, and then we're going to engage you with a relevant message. And then the third E, if you didn't catch on E5, there's 5 E's. The third E is that we're going to encourage you in your faith. We want to encourage you in your life to keep going. We want to come alongside you and say, yes, we don't have all the answers, but we know that life is not meant to be walked alone. We need to be in community. We need to be in communication. We need to bear one another's burdens, like the Bible says, and oftentimes we do a terrible job at. But we would like, if you're willing to let us, to bear your burden with you and walk alongside with you in your life and let you know that you can make it, that you can pursue your dreams, you can quit your bad habits, whatever the case. And so we encourage you in your faith. The fourth E is that we would equip you to do the work of the ministry. And then the last E is that we would empower you to live out your divine destiny. We believe that everyone has a gift in life. Doesn't mean that you're a speaker like me. Doesn't mean you're a rapper, a hooper, whatever it is. Whether you're a great mother, whether you're an artist, whether you're a good businessman, you're a diligent worker, you have a hospitality gift. You love to host people and throw barbecues and parties. And everyone has a gift. Everyone's gift is relevant and everyone's gift is valuable. So we want to equip you to use that gift, and we want to empower you to fulfill your divine destiny. We believe that every person's life is not an accident. It's not a joke, it's serious, and that the Creator gave you a purpose. And that if you're not fulfilling that purpose, that we could, if you let us, come alongside you and help guide you into your divine purpose. But that's a lot to think about. But that is E5 ministry, the concept of it. And what does that look like practically? Many things, starting with open gym. I've been running an open gym basketball outreach every Saturday for roughly 4 or 5 years. Even before I worked at Little Earth, I helped Greg Mott with a similar thing, and then I took it over and moved it to Saturdays. And what we do every Saturday for 2 hours, we have about 35 to 40 predominantly high school age and young adults come hoop at East Phillips Gym. We have some real good games. It's really fun, really competitive, really fast paced. A funny story about that is a lot of times I get people who say, I'd like to give back to youth. I'd like to mentor a youth or get involved with what you're doing. Yeah, sure, I'll come play basketball. And then what I tell them is, are you sure you can hoop? Like, you ain't got to put on a front. Maybe you played high school basketball 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Maybe you're athletic. I had one dude who's on my friends list. I won't say no names, but he's in good shape. Heck of a baseball player. Buff, strong, athletic, not a hooper. And I said, are you sure you can hoop? Because I'm telling you, when you come to our open gym outreach, these boys hoop. If you can't hoop, if you can't dribble, if you can't shoot, if you can't run and guard people, you're not just going to get exposed. You might just get embarrassed. And because he was a grown man, he's like, oh, well, who you hoop with? I said, mainly high school kids. Oh, that's nothing. That's easy. I said, all right, bro, show up on Saturday. My man got crossed. My man hurt his hamstring. My man was sore. And luckily he was honest. I don't want to say luckily. Humbly, he was honest enough to say, yo, I ain't know these dudes hooped like that. And I'm like, what you mean, bro? I done told you they hoop like that. You thought I was playing? So we do basketball, open gym, and there's a lot of hoopers, a lot of good players. After the 2 hours are over, I share some type of gospel message, inspirational message, or life lesson. So for instance, today I shared about the cup. If you watched the first episode of the podcast, you know that I shared the analogy of the cup and what our cup's made of and what goes into our cup, and if our cup ever needs to be emptied. And so I shared that analogy with them, and I challenged them to think about what their cup's made of, what they're putting into their cup, which is a metaphor for life, and then does their cup ever need to be emptied because It's too full of either good or bad things. And so that's what we do. So that's a part of E5 Ministries. The second thing we do is a monthly open mic. You may have seen the flyers. I'm sure I invited you to a Facebook event. You're probably annoyed by it at this point because I just click and invite 500. Facebook will only let you invite 500 people per person. So per account, I can only invite 500 of you. But I make sure to do that every time. And I'm sorry if it's annoying, but I'm just trying to, number one, get you into a positive space. And number two, enlighten you to the fact that there is a lot of really, really dope, talented artists, musicians, poets, comics in the Twin Cities. We've been running this open mic since actually over a year and a half, maybe coming up on 2 years in April. And we've had almost a new featured act every month. We've had rappers, we've had singers, poets, comics, all types of things. So our open mic is called E5 Open Mic, and it's every last Saturday of the month. And actually, next Saturday, which is the last Saturday, we're doing a special event. So shout out to my homie, 1020. He's my brother. I consider him my brother, and he's a fellow rapper, and he's also in my life group. So I see him multiple times a week. We share life together. We pray for each other. We encourage each other. We're having his album release party. He's a very lyrical rapper, and he has a story to tell. He's been going through some things in life, and his album's super dope. I got to hear some of it exclusively because I'm on that VIP list. You feel me? But we're having his album release party next Saturday at City View Church. The address is 3401 4th Avenue South in Minneapolis. On top of that, we'll be showing a premiere of our Little Earth documentary, which is 18 minutes long, like I shared about before. So if you haven't seen the film, or if you want to see the film in person and then be able to have a Q&A discussion with some of the filmmakers, please join us. And then lastly, you need to come hungry because my sister Tina and her business, Native Food Perspectives, will be catering the event. And I'm not sure what she's going to charge. Usually I think it's $10 a plate. But let me tell you something. My sister know how to cook. She will chef it up with the best of them, and it will be healthy. So for instance, we did a joint event this past week at Hope Academy where she cooked buffalo, fry bread, wild rice, and wojapi. Ooh. Y'all don't know what y'all missing. Now, we have no problem buying that $8.99 value meal from McDonald's, from Chick-fil-A. Shout out to Kanye West, by the way, that closed on Sunday's a banger. I don't care what nobody says. But we have no problem buying food, right? We love to eat. Here's a chance where you can come not only get a great meal, which is going to be fire for your taste buds. I can promise you that. It will be healthier than what you probably would eat on a Saturday night. And number 3, you will be supporting an indigenous business owner, my sister Tina. So please, if you love hip hop, if you love to eat, and if you want to encounter or encourage Native people in any way, please come to our open mic. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to be talented. You could come as just a fan or a viewer. But that will be next Saturday at 7 p.m. at City View Church. And then lastly, I'll give you all a VIP sneak at what I have in a proposal. I'm not sure if it's going to work out. I'm not sure what exactly is going to happen. But we are looking at throwing another E5 New Year's Bash. This year it would be on December 28th, which is a Saturday. And we're looking at bringing in a special guest, which will remain nameless for now because I don't know if it's actually gonna work out. But we're gonna bring in a rapper from out of state who is dope. He's one of the most lyrical geniuses I have ever heard. He signed to Sony Records. The dude is a beast. We're going to try to fly him in from Atlanta. But that's neither here nor there because I don't know if it's fully gonna be approved. And so that's a synopsis of E5 Ministries. We do a ton of other things, but you can always follow E5 Ministries on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you ever want to partner with us as a donor, as a volunteer, as an artist, please feel free to reach out. And I mean that. I'm sincere about that. So that'll wrap up that segment. If you're listening, welcome to the Morning Sun Podcast. I'm your host, TJ2 Braids. We will broadcast this podcast twice a week on Facebook Live and YouTube, and then on Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are found. And shout out to Anchor FM, because Anchor FM is the place in which I make this podcast, and it's free. So maybe if you've always wanted to make a podcast and you don't know how, download the Anchor FM app on your phone. It's super free. It's super easy, user-friendly. It is free, so it's super free, free 99. And it's super user-friendly, and it's an easy way to make a podcast. And so Anchor FM is how I have made my podcast. This is the second podcast I've ever made. But it's really easy. Shout out to Anchor FM for helping your boy's dream become a reality. And with that, we're going to go to our last segment, which is on the NFL. There's a lot I could say about the NFL, but really I only want to touch on two topics. One, are the Vikings really Super Bowl contenders? If you know me, you know that I'm an avid Vikings fan. You know that I'm an avid football fan. If you really, really know me, then you know that I've been playing the game of football. Personally, I played it from 3rd grade through high school. That I was really talented. I ain't even capping. I probably could have played D1, but I had a lot of circumstances where I threw that away. But I'm happy to be where I am. I don't live in the past and regret. But are the Vikings Super Bowl contenders? Is Kirk Cousins the real deal? Do we have a chance at making any noise in the playoffs? Now, depending on who's listening, first of all, Seattle's my second home. So everyone that knows me knows I love the Seahawks. And then Tom Brady's my favorite player ever besides Randy Moss. So some people say I'm a bandwagon fan, but at the core, I'm a Vikings fan. I love the Vikings. Are they contenders? Let me start with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, because he's getting paid, remember, $84 million guaranteed. And we all know what happened last season. We didn't even make it to the playoffs. We went from one game away from the Super Bowl with Case Keenum to paying someone like half our cap, and we didn't make the playoffs. That's very disappointing, to say the least. But this year, Kirk Cousins is balling. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a skeptic. I still am not fully convinced at Kirk Cousins. Maybe it helps that I met him personally. I shook his hand. I looked him in the eyes. He complimented my native jacket. So if you ever seen my native winter coat, it's real bright and colorful. And he said, I really like your jacket. And I said, hey, come to the next powwow. You can snag one. So I don't know if I'm fully sold. But what I will tell you is this. Kirk Cousins, via Pro Football Focus, has Kirk Cousins ranked as the best quarterback in the NFL on play-action passes. He has a grade of 91.4 to go with over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. So when a quarterback drops back to pass on a play-action play, nobody has a higher rating this year in the NFL than your boy Kirk Cousins. Secondly, it notes that Cousins has been the best passer on crossing routes and on next read throws. So a crossing route is when the receiver goes across the field. He's been the best passer on those routes in the NFL. And then also he's been the best passer on next read throws. That means when his first option isn't open and he goes to his second progression or third progression, He's been the best passer on next read throws in the NFL, which I was kind of shocked at, really, to be honest with you. I was thinking, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, these mobile quarterbacks where the play breaks down. Cousins been the best completion-wise with next read throws. And then finally, Kirk Cousins' Pro Football Focus grade is 85.3, which ranks him 5th in the NFL, behind Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees, who has barely played this season, so I don't know why he's even on the list. And then, of course, the big bad wolf, Aaron Rodgers. But it's the best mark of Cousins' career, and it's an improvement from last season where he honestly was a little better than we give him credit for last year, but overall the team was not doing good. So through 11 games, the Vikings are 8-3. He's thrown for like almost 2,800 yards. I believe like 20 touchdowns and 3 picks or something like that. And then number 2, Dalvin Cook, to me, has been the best running back in the NFL this year. Some would argue it's Christian McCaffrey. I ain't even finna cap. That boy Christian McCaffrey is a cold piece. But Dalvin Cook has been healthy. I actually talked to a friend about this the other week. I was going to draft Dalvin Cook in my fantasy league, but I was afraid that his knee wasn't going to hold up because I just wasn't sure. But Dalvin Cook has been by far, in my opinion, the most explosive back. He's a complete back. He blocks. He's phenomenal on screen routes and coming out of the backfield. And then, of course, in the open field, my man is just a whole nother beast. So are the Vikings Super Bowl contenders? You look at who's in the NFC, man. You got the Seahawks. You got the Cowboys, who we already beat. You got the Saints. You got the Packers. I'm probably missing other teams. But I think it really boils down to, can we win enough games to get a first-round bye? I think if we're able to get a first-round bye in the playoffs, then we have a clear-cut shot at the Super Bowl. Would we win the Super Bowl? I'm not going to give an answer to that. Our defense, which I think is great. I was at the Denver Broncos game where our secondary, who actually got torched all game, made a goal line stand from 4 yards away, and they shut the Broncos down 4 plays in a row to secure the victory. So do I think our defense has what it takes to win a Super Bowl? I do. Now, of course, we have a history of great Vikings teams going to the playoffs and then underachieving and being the moment too big for them. So I don't know. But once you get in the playoffs, it's anyone's game. You don't know what could happen. I don't know. I think it's great that we're doing good. But so are the Vikings contenders? I would say yes. They're contenders more than they are pretenders. And the rest of the season will dictate if that's true or not. I'm looking forward to that game against the Packers later this year. But the second thing, and this will be the last segment of the podcast, is who is the NFL MVP in my eyes? There's been a lot of hype around Lamar Jackson. Hey, Jess, I know you joined late. It's all good. We're going to broadcast the Morning Sun podcast twice a week. Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor FM, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. But there's been a lot of talk about Lamar Jackson. And honestly, when I saw him do that run the other week where he spun and ran for like 60 yards, I'm like, yo, my man is the second coming of Michael Vick. And I don't know about you, if anyone ever played Madden 2004, that boy Michael Vick was a cheat code. He's probably the greatest video game character in history. And in real life, Michael Vick was a cold piece. A lot of people are saying Lamar Jackson's better. I'm like, my man, he been in the league 2 years. Calm down. And here's the thing I will say about Lamar Jackson. I hope to God this doesn't happen. I really do. I'm not trying to speak negative on anyone's life. But the fact of the matter remains that because he's so mobile and he leaves the pocket and runs, and he honestly doesn't look that big. He's one big shot away from a very severe injury, a concussion, knee injury, whatever the case may be. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he stays healthy his whole career. I hope we're witnessing a generational talent that's going to go on to do amazing things. I don't really necessarily like the Baltimore Ravens, but you know, he's a phenomenal talent. It's awesome to watch. As a football fan, it's exciting. So I hope he stays healthy. But there's been a lot of talk because they beat the Patriots in the regular season. And I've seen numerous reports over the last 5 to 7 years that your boy Tom Brady, the GOAT, is finished. And I just sit back and laugh because how many reports have came out about Tom Brady being washed up? How many doubters has Tom Brady had in his career? My man's been doubted his whole career. So, can Lamar Jackson beat the Patriots? Can Lamar Jackson beat other teams in the playoffs when it actually matters? I don't know. It'll be yet to be seen. I think it would be phenomenal if the Ravens and Patriots played in the AFC Championship, whether in Baltimore or Foxborough. I think it would be a phenomenal game. I will be glued to my seat watching. Is Lamar Jackson the MVP of the NFL, though? I would say no. I would say the MVP is Russell Wilson. I would say Russell Wilson is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in our league. And why do I say that? Because he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Russell Wilson is always at the top of the NFL. Maybe not the very top, but I'm talking the top 3, 4, 5 in statistics, in every statistic, every year. He's a Houdini. He's a magician with a football, and he does so many great things, and he has a cannon, and he's accurate, and he is clutch. It's not his fault. Although, well, I honestly, when Pete Carroll told him to run the ball against the pass the ball against the Patriots where he threw a pick, I would have audibled. If it cost me my job as a quarterback, I don't care. He should have handed the ball to Marshawn Lynch. So I would say, in a way, it is partly his fault. But it's not his fault. His coach thought it was a good idea to pass instead of give the ball to Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. He already has a Super Bowl. He should have 2 Super Bowls. I believe Russell Wilson doesn't get the credit due. He was Lamar Jackson before Lamar Jackson. Is he faster and quicker than Lamar Jackson? I would say no, but he's a Houdini with the ball. He escapes impossible situations, and he's just phenomenal. And the Seahawks are an awesome team. I will be watching the game next Monday night, the Vikings and Seahawks. I believe that game is really going to decide if the Vikings belong among the elite in the NFL. We'll see. I don't know. I really wish I could go to Seattle. If any of y'all watching this and you a lawyer, you a doctor, you rich, you looking to give back, I will gladly take airfare to Seattle, Washington. I'll buy my own football ticket once I get there. I would love to be at that game. That's a joke, but I would love to be at that game. Shout out to all my Seattle people. I lived there for 3 years, 2.5 years of my life. I'll be watching. But this is the Morning Sun podcast. With that, I believe we're going to wrap up this second episode. And like I said, the goal is going to be to broadcast roughly probably Wednesdays and Saturdays. I'm sure there'll be days and weeks where that doesn't take place. But we will broadcast in video form on Facebook Live and then also on YouTube. So follow me at TJ2Braids on YouTube. It would mean a lot if you subscribe to my YouTube, watch the videos. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends. It's also on Spotify and other places podcasts are found, and is brought to you by Anchor FM. Lastly, I would say this. If you like the podcast, please like it, comment, share it with your friends. If you want to be on the podcast, if you would love to talk about any of these topics, whether it's culture, whether it's ministry, whether it's faith, whether it's sports, pop culture, breaking news, what's trending, politics, what goes on in the world. I would love to have you on as a special guest. Even if you're not in the Minneapolis area, we can make it work audio wise, video, Skype and different things like that. And number two, the next episode, the third episode, we will have a special guest. So it won't just be me talking. We'll have a special guest here in person on video and then obviously audio wise with me to talk about more issues and topics and discussion. And that's a special surprise guest. So I'm not going to break that news to you. But please follow us. Follow us on Instagram at the Morning Sun Podcast, all one word. Look for us on Facebook, YouTube, and whatnot, and like, comment, and share it away. And with that, I am your host, TJ Two Braids. I hope y'all enjoy your Saturday night. I hope that you got something out of this podcast. And if at the very least, I hope it sparked a dialogue and discussion that we can further continue. So with that, God bless. I'm out of here, man. Peace.